welcome now Dr. Shailesh Kumar to provide some opening remarks on this topic that we have embarked upon.
Yeah, thank you, Tanka, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to host this session. As we all know, AI is not new. It has been around for the last so many decades, and now we are seeing some amazing, realization of AI in our daily lives. And what we have seen in the last 20 years is an amazing journey of AI. But recently, Sundar Pichai said that AI is one of the most important things mankind has ever done, which is, basically, we have done wheels and fire and internet and space. And he's saying AI is one of the most important things we have done on top of it, right? So that is something very profound. And I think he also said that it is as pervasive as, fire and electricity. But the real question is what he's saying, are we there yet? And that is really the theme of this seminar, which is if we really think about the true potential of AI, what Sundar and many others are promoting, are we there yet? And how are we going to get there? And what does that future look like? And what kind of skill sets do we need to develop as data scientists to get there? So that's kind of the basic idea of this thing. And we'll hear from some great panelists today about their views, their journeys about in AI, and what are their thoughts about the future of AI, the past of AI, and the future skill sets of our students. Right? So welcome to the panel and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shailesh, for that opening note. Before we get into the panel discussion, AI and data science is an area where the Geo Institute has also significantly invested on. I would like to take a few minutes to walk you through a quick presentation on what we are trying to do with the Geo Institute in the Indian higher education landscape. So Geo Institute is being set up as an exemplary Indian academic institution, which over the years can be compared with some of the best in the world. The Reliance Group and its founding family wants to contribute to nation building by building a vibrant ecosystem for research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And Geo Institute is an effort towards that direction. Through Geo Institute, we want to build the next generation of solutions for industry and the nation, and the next generation of leaders and entrepreneurs who can execute and bring to fruition those solutions. Our governing council consists of the founding family members. Dr. Mashelkar is our chancellor, an eminent scientist, Padma Vibhushan awardee, and a fellow of the Royal Society of London. Our vice chancellor is Dr. Deepak Jain, a former dean at the Kellogg School of Management in the US and INSEAD in Paris. Apart from that, as you can see, there are a host of luminaries from industry and academia who, as part of this council, are guiding us in realizing our dream. We also have a global advisory council, basically the top row that you see on the screen, of eminent institution builders who have helped many great institutions grow. Places like those which are household names like Yale and NTU in Singapore, Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech, Caltech, etc. And finally, we have a host of academic advisors who are helping us develop a host of full-time PG level programs on various fields. We also have, apart from our Chancellor and VC, our Provost, Dr. Guruswamy Ravichandran, who is joining us from Caltech in a matter of a couple of months. So what Geo Institute is trying to do over a period of 10 or 15 years is, in the Indian ecosystem, develop a world-class, multidisciplinary, research-driven university across various schools like engineering, medical sciences, management, humanities, law, governance, architecture, and many other fields. At our peak capacity, we would host about 10,000 students with a commensurate number of faculty, which over a period of time would help us catapult into a leadership position in the education landscape. These are some, just on a different note, some pictures from our campus in Ulve in Navi Mumbai, where we are gearing up, almost ready to welcome our first batch of students in July of this year. So disclaimer is that the people that you see here are all our staff members, because the students would come in a couple of months, but nonetheless the facilities are all ready. One second. And ready to host our students. So the computer center, the workstations, the faculty cabins, the beautiful picture at night. So in the short term, what we are trying to do in the next 3 years, starting this year in July, is introduce 1-year full-time postgraduate level programs across disciplines which are yearning for more talent and more scholastic efforts. In the year 1, we are launching programs on AI and data science, the topic of today's discussion, and along with another program on digital media and marketing communication. In year 2, programs on journalism, public health, and sports management, followed by programs around new energy, new materials, and life sciences in year 3. How do our programs look? These are all 1-year full-time residential on-campus programs driven out of our Navi Mumbai campus. Students will be taught by some of the best faculty from international universities who would spend time with us in person and teach our students on campus. The curriculum has been developed with significant industry inputs so that it is serving to the needs of the industry today and tomorrow. Along with that, we have a holistic learning module which teaches students essential professional life skills like communication, leadership, design thinking, systems thinking, entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. All our programs will have a study abroad module at one of our partner universities and a capstone project with industry that gives you the rooting in the industry ecosystem with a life project. Our collaborators in the university space include the University of Toronto in Canada, UC San Diego in the US, NTU in Singapore, and the University of Manchester in the UK. Coming to the program pertinent to this discussion as well, we are launching the program on AI and data science, which is full-time and developed, as I said, by the 2 gentlemen academicians that we have today with us, Dr. Shailesh Kumar and Dr. Larry Birnbaum from the Northwestern University. The program, essentially, what it tries to do is develop professionals who are ready for the future in a 360-degree sort of way in the field of AI and data science by inculcating skills in some core areas central to this field. One is foundational knowledge of areas like statistics, mathematics, and computational techniques, which can enable them to build mathematical forms around the petabytes of data that organizations typically generate these days. Second is the skill to develop algorithms, the ability to utilize systems and softwares to develop solutions which are not just prototypes or POCs, but solutions which are built at scale for the industry. And thirdly, and most importantly, an appreciation of the different domains in which AI can apply in varied sort of ways. We are doing this through a set of core and foundational courses in the areas that you see on your screen, and then a set of elective courses taught towards the later half of the program, coupled with the holistic learning module, the capstone project, and the study abroad module. We are also teaching our students, as I said, nuances of different industries, different society verticals, as well as business functions through a series of case studies that we call AI for X, along with tools and tricks module, which enables them or familiarizes them with different softwares that are relevant to this area. The faculty and advisor for our programs are drawn, as I said, from some of the best places in the world, names like Penn State, UT Austin, IIT Hyderabad, Stanford University, ISB, Microsoft Research, MIT, Northwest University, UCSD, and many more. People who will come and teach our students in person. Coming to our second program, that's on digital media and marketing communication, and that's being developed by Dr. Frank from Northwestern University again. This is another growing field on which you can find more details on our website. The structure is the same, the coverage of the topics different, but again, a very modern and industry relevant program where analytics incidentally also plays a key role. The faculty again is drawn from some of the best places around the world. And both these programs will be launched in July. We are also launching a center for AI research, a center of excellence, the work on which some of the projects have already begun. So what we are looking for our students when we open out our programs is people who have demonstrated early career professionals who have demonstrated a good academic track record, a little bit of experience, industry grounding, as well as a little bit of well-roundedness outside of the curriculum as well. We are looking, in the case of the AI and data science program, candidates with a graduation with some relevance around computer science, math, stats, etc., with a minimum of 18 months of work experience. People can go to our website and look into the details and apply online. The fee for the program is rupees 6 lakhs inclusive of taxes, accommodation, food, and the study abroad stay component. And there is a month more to apply, with the classes beginning on 18th of July. So just to summarize very quickly, with Geo Institute, we are trying to establish an institution that focuses on academic excellence and research, provide a platform for great minds to collaborate in by offering industry-relevant programs that churns out leaders with a solution-driven mindset, a global outlook, with the strengths that we have, which is great faculty set, a comprehensive curriculum, state-of-the-art campus that we hope would turn our graduates into learners for life. So with that, I would like to draw to a conclusion the quick bit on Geo Institute and welcome our panelists formally to the discussion. Dr. Ankur Narang, President, AI and Data Sciences Technologies at Hike Messenger. Welcome, Dr. Narang. Dr. Anshuman Gupta, Vice President, Data Science at MIQ Digital. Welcome, Dr. Gupta. And Mr. Hemang Nayak, Global Head Solutions and Offerings for AI at Tech Mahindra. Welcome, Mr. Nayak. I would now like to start off with a question that could probably be a little professionally personal for all of you. And I would like each of you to contribute to that. So could you tell us a little bit about what has been your AI journey like? What was the trigger that drew you into this field, and how rewarding, how frustrating, how captivating has this journey been? When did it start, and where are you, and where do you foresee this going? I would like to start with Dr. Ankur. Welcome to the session.
Thanks, Sudhankar. So my journey and interest in AI essentially started when in IBM research in New Delhi. So I basically saw a huge opportunity for AI across a huge variety of applications, including NLP, computer vision, video processing, and so forth, and an application to verticals which kind of spanned all the way from e-commerce to telecom to oil and gas as well, and healthcare. So my journey over there basically started with the oil and gas vertical, where we looked at the full waveform inversion problem, essentially figuring out how the parameters of the subsurface change and how to kind of infer them in an inverse kind of problem setting, given the production of oil and gas across 20-30 years for an oil field, oil reservoir with, let's say, tens of thousands of wells. So that was a very scientific oriented problem, with the intersection of scientific computing, full waveform inversion, kind of math modeling, machine learning for dimensionality reduction and tuning of the parameters, and also high performance computing. So what really excited me about that was looking at the intersection of maths, computer science, and an application area which has a very high impact, both the scientific technical impact and also the business impact part of it, being an oil and gas industry in general. And it was very surprising to me that such amount of maths and science along with the computer science and engineering perspectives can have such a wide impact. So we had a cross collaboration across around 5 to 7 labs in IBM research, including Watson, and we are working with the best of national companies in Brazil as well as in other places in Spain. So other interesting application in IBM research we worked on was with in fact Airtel, where we were looking at billions of CDRs and solving real-time analytics problems, and also looking at recommendation problems for tens of millions of users for their various value-added services, and solving very sparse recommendation problems where the sparsity is kind of multiple orders of magnitude higher compared to the typical Netflix challenge or the Yahoo Music challenge problems we had at that point of time. So very interesting problems. Other problems with the US telecom majors we were solving was video analytics, where we were looking at how to optimize the placement of videos onto the base stations given a particular collection and random pattern of users arriving at a base station, so that their fundamental experience of the video watching across their various real life situations in a metro, in a car, and so forth is optimized for the best of user experience. Beyond that, I essentially picked up technology leadership and chief data scientist positions across Mobilium, which was primarily into, again, telecom fraud analytics, and then later going on into travel e-commerce such as Yatra. And there we looked at problems in telecom fraud, working with T-Mobile, essentially looking at data fraud, call fraud, and how to essentially use deep learning to model the various parts of aspects about anomaly detection and so forth. And across this whole journey, essentially we realized that the research labs definitely were ahead of the game, whereas at that point of time when I jumped into the more of application verticals outside of IBM research, realized that the industry was really still the maturity was still coming, at least in the organizations within India. So this was roughly around 8 years back, 2014. And but we did, when I established those particular AI verticals in Mobilium first, then Yatra, and then going deeper into Hike in terms of social and metaverse space. Basically, alongside on the scientific and the technical advancements perspective, we did see a lot of progress happening in terms of the new techniques coming in, the transformers coming in, the focus on attention, how it really enhanced the whole performance of the various deep learning models and enabled that across a whole range of stuff. And in terms of application, the e-commerce part in Yatra, I think, was very interesting, where we essentially looked at revenue optimizations beyond a typical optimization formulation to include predictive, prescriptive part, and also using reinforcement learning to improve the various business parameters while maintaining the fundamental constraints about how the user would feel about the pricing changes and their elasticities. In addition, optimizing, for example, using reinforcement learning again for SEM marketing campaigns, where we have Google AdWords and the real-time APIs to changing the bidding across the various dimensions that are available in the Google AdWords API, and to get the best of basically the lowest of the acquisition cost per user, the CPA as we say, and again optimizing across maximizing the conversions and multiple parameter optimization formulation. And obviously there were other aspects we looked at from a typical analytics perspective about setting up a large data engineering infrastructure, using cloud for maximizing the efficiency of the whole execution, various infrastructures over there, and how to get the best ROI in terms of cost on a cloud. That was a very good learning, I would say, over there. And we impacted not only the B2C vertical, we impacted B2E vertical, B2B vertical, and it was uniformly applied with pretty significant monetary impact as well, not just the technical and business impact. Going further into Hike has been an interesting journey. We have looked at the social space, start with Hike Messenger, and now into a metaverse kind of a space. In the social space, we are looking at multilingual language modeling and figuring out how to give the best of language recommendation with the various attention and sequence to sequence models, and essentially look at how do you kind of get the best visual interactive behavior, predictive interactive behavior for the user, so that the interaction between two people has the best UX. Again, fully powered by AI, which is again offline mode and also in an online mode. And also in an online mode, it's kind of full kind of coordination with finite latencies between the cloud and the device. So fully utilizing the device infrastructure for various models for TensorFlow and so forth to get the best of experience for the user under the given kind of latency constraints, and also making sure that tens of millions of users are able to communicate on a throughput perspective. Essentially, beyond that, we migrated into the metaverse and AI intersection, and we really dived into computer vision and video processing kind of models, where we looked at first the 2D, what we called Hypemoji, which basically was used in Hikeland and even the Hike Messenger platform quite a bit. And it is still there in the Rush gaming universe, which basically is kind of multiple set of games now bringing the Web3 business models over there. And essentially looking at how to maximize the experience of the users and also the monetary part of it. The 2D Hypemoji then has been transformed and released very recently into the 3D Rush Avatar, as we call it. And this 3D Rush Avatar has a very fine-grained personalization of the whole parameters of the face. There are hundreds of blend shape parameters through which the various aspects of the face can be tuned with a single image of the person, either through a camera or through an existing pic. And so other than personalization, we looked at animations, we looked at problems where kind of how to generate speech with this, which is personalized speech, considering the prosody, frequency, and other parameters in the various normalization aspects of the deep learning networks, and how to make that adaptive and scalable across a large number of users. And we also looked at problems of audio to video kind of generation and generated quite a bit of IP through patents, as well as a technical impact through research papers and journals at a pretty international, one of the top conferences over there as well. So interesting, I would say, kind of set of applications that are coming across. Now with Web3 business models, there's again a pretty interesting intersection of, I would say, AI and Web3 and the automation part and so forth, and how to get the best kind of experience to the users and really bring some novel innovations onto the in the field of metaverse. So overall, if I see, my journey has gone through, it's interestingly started with the scientific applications, and even in the going through starting with Mobilium outside in a more application oriented industry space, essentially going through a particular set of starting with more analytics oriented stuff, but still using anomaly and deep learning and so forth, and now essentially going towards NLP, CV, video processing, kind of more AI oriented stuff, and also going into the intersection part, which kind of corroborates with how the industry is developing and how these opportunities are springing up in the Indian ecosystem, and making this a very really rich field for people to kind of join, for institutes such as the Geo getting set up to really help in fostering this ecosystem and bringing research into it.
Thank you, Ankur. So one of the things that stood out for me, apart from your foray into different technologies within AI like NLP, computer vision, etc., was that chronologically, the industries that you worked on also kind of, for me, corresponded with the ebb and flow of the relative importance of various industries. You spoke first about oil and gas and science, and then to media and broadcasting, to telecom, and then to social and e-commerce, and then metaverse of the world. So that was really interesting in terms of the chronology. Thanks a lot for that. May I now request Anshuman to tell us a little bit about your own journey into the field of AI and data science?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'd just like to thank the Geo Institute for having me on this panel. So I really appreciate this invitation, and welcome to everyone who has joined this session. So for me, my AI journey essentially started with my sort of PhD back almost 22 years, right? And so there, I started with stochastic optimization in the context of supply chain, right? And I was a chemical engineer here, right? And then moved over towards the intersection of operations research, and chemical engineering, which I think was sort of, I mean, I really consider myself lucky, right? I mean, this is before, data science or even analytics was a buzzword, right? So a little bit old school where we were talking, OR and management science and so on, right? So worked on a lot of, very interesting problems. My thesis was sort of sponsored by DuPont, where we were looking at sort of supply chain in the chemical industry, right? So very interesting to see that, Ankur was on the oil and gas side, while I was more on the sort of the plastics, petrochemical sort of side of things, right? So, post, my PhD, I mean, I was at Penn State and, did a lot of postdoctoral work where we applied a lot of those same principles, right, of stochastic optimization to areas like, bioinformatics, right? Also to things like, managing R&D portfolios. There's a field around real options where, option pricing models that you see in the financial space are essentially applied to real assets, right? And some of the pharmaceutical product development portfolios can be viewed in that lens, right? And so, yeah, some really, really amazing work in academia for sort of the first 10, 11 years, of my career, post which is when I, moved to India and to industry, right? So two very distinct phases of, my AI journey, so to speak, right? Academia and the US, and then sort of industry and in India. And so here, the sort of some of the very exciting work that I did in the early part of my career was again sort of related to supply chain optimization. So for instance, we were working for McDonald's, and as you would imagine, McDonald's supply chains are like, multi-billion-dollar supply chains. And, through things like, network optimization and linear programming and transportation planning, if you shave off, a couple of percentage points on that supply chain, you're still talking about, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So really great experience of sort of seeing the sort of true dollar impact of, analytics or data science or OR on real world problems. Right? So from post that, this was sort of more of a consulting type of work. I moved towards product development and joined, an organization that was sort of eventually acquired by Nielsen, where we were looking at, geospatial analytics, right? So generating data around, signals of, say, what is the income distribution, at a very small geographical level, right? I mean, you obviously have PIN codes or zip codes, but can you go down to a 1 square kilometer area and figure out, right, what kind of demographics do you see in that area, and then how you can then use that kind of information in retail targeting, right? Or for instance, things like store location, right, which are highly dependent on what kind of demographics do you see, around a particular lat long, right? So yeah, so that was sort of my foray into product development. Post which, I joined CTS, which is Cognizant, more again back into a sort of a services / consulting kind of role, as well as sort of building large organizations, right? And I think that's when we're talking about like 2014, 15, which is when sort of data science as a field is sort of emerging, right? I mean, analytics was there, and that's around the time that we see data science emerging, and got the opportunity to sort of build that function sort of from scratch, right? And sort of work on identifying use cases sort of across domains. As part of that, me personally, I worked, I was in Japan for close to 6-9 months, sort of working in the insurance space, where we were working with, one of the world's largest insurance company to look at their, customer retention problems, right? Making sure, their customer management kind of use cases, right? And then more recently, right now I'm with MIQ Digital in the programmatic space, in the ad tech space, which is again a very, very exciting, data-rich, highly dynamic space, right? Where the kinds of use cases that we're working on are around, for instance, budget optimization or bidding optimization. If you're familiar with ad tech, every ad that you see out there is there's an auction that goes on in the back end, right? So what is the optimal way to bid for a particular ad space that will help you achieve your marketing goals or advertising goals, right? So those are the kinds of problem statements that I'm working on right now. So yeah, I'll just sort of take a pause here, and yeah, thank you once again, Utanka, Larry, Shailesh for having me here.
Thank you, Anshuman. What stood out for me here was the multiple levels of transition that you did. Transition from academia to industry, transition from chemical engineering to analytics, transition then from product development to a services/consulting ecosystem. I think many of these are in a way related to many of the early career professionals who are attending these sessions, and they're trying to navigate their own career in terms of the different layers of transition that one can achieve. So thanks a lot for your insight and inspirational talk. I would now like to pose the same question to Hemang and a little bit from Hemang on your own journey in the space of AI.
Thanks. First of all, thank you to Geo Institute for having me here as a panelist. And see, I have over 23 years of experience into IT, and my journey has been a little different. And what I believe in my professional aptitude is about unlearning and learning. So I started my journey as obviously typically most of us start as a software engineer working on open technologies and whatnot. However, data excited me always, and that gave me a chance to move into data and analytics with Infosys. There I worked with banking and insurance clients, mainly building some of the largest warehouse and biggest warehouse for them. Again, when you're working on data, you're very close to the problem statements. You understand, what's going on with the data, right? Because that's the crux of everything. AI actually runs on data in a way, right? So that one of the point is that excited me more about, some of the problem statement about the frauds which is happening in insurance and banking industry, anti-money laundering, some of the problem statement which I understood what happened, with the data which I was working with. And as again, the philosophy of unlearning and learning, the chance came. I spent around 10 years into data analytics, working on multiple solutions for insurance and banking client with Infosys. Again, with Infosys, the chance came when we were building an AI platform, Infosys NIA. And there was a need for bringing the experience of all the domain-specific nuances and building solutions are on top of it. So there's building a point solutions, basically, so to say, right? Can I extract information out of insurance broker documents or any other document? So I worked on multiple solutions there. One was about document AI, where extracting the data using NLP from documents, reading emails, So some of those I worked with largest banks again. They had major problems around spending a lot of time on reading emails, responding to clients and whatnot, right? So I think that's where my AI journey, so to say, started working on the AI platform, building solutions and offerings around that. I spent 3-4 years around it. I took a little diversion in between when I moved into product engineering side and building a very focused and dedicated products or solutions or for clients. Again, of course, it was a very good experience moving on to a different, area. But as the AI was evolving, I think one of the things which I learned working with different clients is, see, we all understands AI very much. Putting AI into production is one of the easy tasks, but then maintaining it is one of the major problem statement, right? Where it's not giving results continuous basis, it's not accuracy, it's not improving day by day, or it's deteriorating. So there are a lot of building blocks around AI, and it was important that, and that's where I felt that I think this is one area where it is important to provide a strategic and consulting to different clients, where you can make them understand that, one is of course AI. You can build the models, you can put them into production. However, there are a lot of building blocks for AI. Some of them, if I talk about, governance around it, change management, a strategy to build your roadmap around it. What are the different use cases you can pick it up, right? I think that's also one of the reasons that a lot of AI projects picked up, but they failed, because there was not a life cycle which was needed for AI was followed, So that's I felt is important for AI to be successful in the enterprise. And that's where, again, I joined Tech Mahindra 4 months back. I thought this is one area where I want to get into providing consulting and strategic, leadership to different clients. Again, going back to what I did during Infosys days of building a very point solutions on NLP, computer vision. We are working on a couple of those solutions around that. But yeah, I mean, that's how the journey has been started. Good part now is that my philosophy of unlearning and learning has got a full stop here, because AI is one field where you have to learn continuous basis, because it's evolving every day and it's pervasive. It's there in every other aspects of life, right? So anything you do today, be it IoT, cybersecurity, blockchain, anything you talk about, the AI is there everywhere, So I think that's where, everything we do today is touched upon by AI, and a lot of startups are coming. I'm working with many of them, understanding what kind of product they are developing, helping them out, what are the roadmap they should look at, where the industry is heading. So I think some of those things have really excited me continue my journey in AI, and probably I've found that this is one area where I'll continue to learn. So that's about me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hemang. I think that applies to you, most of us, as well as the field of AI, which self-learns, So thanks a lot. I think your case of a journey from being a software developer to a AI specialist is something that many of our people in the audience would also like to emulate, which is why they are here. Moving on to the next question, and I would like to bring it to Ankur's notice. Ankur, could you tell me how the field of AI has evolved in the last 20 years? How did it start versus where is it today?
Sure. So I think basically it has gone a long way. The rate of change, I would say, has also been increasing. There was a time in which it was primarily more oriented towards very initial set of, from an application standpoint, it was more application towards more of crunching data, more of descriptive analytics, I would say. And the base kind of models, it was more around data engineering evolving and the data collection methodologies and the tools getting matured. It was in that phase. Basically, even 20 years, or even I would say even 15 years back on the application side of space, right? So if you look at the industry, the global industry and the Indian industry from an AI standpoint, it has gone through a long way in these 20 years. Right now, we have essentially companies which are actually at the stage of pretty decent maturity, I would say, where they have ingrained lots of business models and they are using it big time. From the journey from the science part of it, from the technical growth part of it, we have seen starting from the SVMs, which were early kind of 90s by Wapnick, and then going over all the way to deep learning, starting with Jeffrey Hinton's deep learning models around 2005 kind of time frame, which kind of matured into the generative adversarial networks by Ian Goodfellow 2014, then 2017 Vaswani, the transformer, which gave a real fundamental push to the application and to the impact and accuracy that the models could give. And that transformed suddenly into a huge number of applications where everyone started using that, not only for vision, but for NLP and all different kind of applications. In fact, each and every application now has a transformer, which can actually have a very high impact compared to the other models. the deep learning layer that started from 2005 onwards. Obviously, a lot of foundations had been done earlier. It was no magic that suddenly it kind of happened. So a lot of the fundamentals were there, in the papers in some form of practice. But the formalization of that from 2005 all the way to now, after 2017, the Vaswani kind of transformer, the whole concept coming in with the application and strong results, it kind of penetrated across games. We had AlphaGo Zero, which kind of plays the game of Go, poker, chess, and so forth, and beats the best players in the world. You have applications coming into bio, which DeepMind coming in with AlphaFold and solving the 50-year grand challenge in protein folding. And then you have other spaces, the recent ones, 2020, the GPT-3 from OpenAI, followed by Codex from OpenAI again in 2021, where they are solving the really, I would say, hard problems and using input language to generate, perfectly working code, and across all different kind of languages, obviously with a large kind of input kind of code from GitHub and so forth. So the whole journey from the technical side has gone really well, and I would say now the pace at which the research papers are getting into the whole space, and you see various horizontal application areas, vision, NLP, reinforcement learning, robotics, and so forth, are getting a huge amount of maturity in terms of the models that are available in a private space, commercially, and also in an open source. They're maturing really well, and therefore the industry, global as well as in India, is now able to leverage that, and that also the pace of acceleration is definitely increasing over there. So I would say it has been an interesting journey, and then looking, now going into penetrating in each of those areas further.
Thanks, Ankur. Hemang and Anshuman, if you'd like to add something, just jump in.
I just want to give a little more industry-specific, angle to this, that how industry have evolved over a period, right? So one, I'll talk about the challenges which were there 5 years, 10 years back, and what are the positives now we have, right? One of the major area of challenge or bottleneck what we had with different industry is the belief in AI, right? Will it give me? So first of all, it was all about return of investment. It was all about efficiency gain. Nobody was thinking or talking about what AI can really bring to the life. Which has now changed, of course, in last 3 to 5 years, I would say, where industries are, organizations are talking more about customer experience. Can I have a predictability in my business? Can I have operations which runs without much of errors? It is completely error-free kind of, right? Can I have kind of zero operations to my life? Along with infinite possibilities which AI can bring in. So there are a lot of changes which have happened in the last 5-10 years. There are a lot of computer vision based projects which was not there before, is now being introduced, where I can actually monitor my manufacturing shop floor for safety of the employees who are working on the shop floor, right? Then there are a computer vision based project where I want to measure certain, so there are in oil and gas specifically, right? And some of you might know, you need to do a lot of measurements of the instruments which are coming out, right? To make sure that everything is proper. The computer vision is aligned for that now. There are being, especially again in oil and gas, if the systems are within the well and whatnot, right? The sensors are attached and data is coming out from there. And then, so I think there are a lot of advancement discussions happening now, which was not happening before. It is not just about return of investment. It's not just about efficiency gain. It's about talking to the next level, which can bring customer experience to a different level, So I think those parameters have changed now. AI is now there in every board meeting, where that's the first discussion. AI first is the philosophy now with a lot of board meeting. When I talk to CIOs or CEOs, right? That's the discussion which is being, how can I improve my efficiency? What is AI can do to help me bring some of this? So I think from industry angle, right, a lot of things have changed in last few years. Just to add a few things here. I think you're on mute.
I was just saying, from shop floor to top floor, the AI field has been very, very pervasive. I would now like to move to another very interesting question, which is kind of forward-looking and provocative. Are we done yet with AI. What does the future hold in this field? So, Anshuman, would you like to come in on that question, and then others can chip in?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. The short answer is no, of course not. Right, we're in the very, very sort of initial stages of it. Of course, I mean it's been around, but there's a long way to go. And at the end of the day, it is all about the journey, right? I mean, there's really no end destination. So in terms of what does the future look like? I mean, as say Hemang or Ankur have sort of talked about, I think there's just going to be a explosion of use cases across all domains, right? I mean, we've been pushing against this flywheel, and now it's just starting to go, right? So from things like sustainability and climate change that have tremendous impact to things like metaverse and robotics, right? I think these are some sort of emerging areas where I think the acceleration will sort of continue to go on, right? I mean, I think in terms of the whole process of how we deploy AI, I think we will, and I think already are to a certain extent reaching sort of hyper automation, right? Where you want to take most of the routine rote work out that can be taken over by machines. And the more creative value add work is done by humans, right? And so I mean that's where the whole philosophy of human in the loop AI also comes in, right? Another dimension is around sort of areas like edge AI and federated machine learning, right? So typically, we've always thought of collecting the data in a central location, training a model, and then sort of sending the model back, to a mobile phone or an IoT sensor to score, right? But I think that is probably as the scale of these systems increases, and also due to other constraints like privacy and data security and so on. I think the whole concept of federated machine learning or edge AI is going to be, I think, even more pervasive, right? And sort of a related aspect to that are sort of things like model governance, model risk management, as well as sort of explainability, right? I mean, as more decisions are taken by machines or by AI systems, they will need to start mimicking how a human would have explained why we took that decision, right? So I don't think that whole black box aspect of a lot of these models will need to have a layer of sort of explainability and interpretability around them, right? And then maybe finally, I think more from a skills standpoint, I mean, I think there's going to be a, much more specialization that's going to be needed, right? I mean, we are already on that journey, right? So for instance, you can clearly see that, that there's a different skill set for a data scientist versus say an ML or an AI engineer, right? Very different kinds of thought processes or mindset that is needed to be successful in those two kinds of roles, right? And similarly, as we go further, and I think even now, you can imagine the need for a computer vision engineer or an NLP engineer / data scientist, right? Who are sort of deep into that domain and sort of pretty much know that inside out, right? And I'm sure to a certain extent, this is, reflecting how maybe engineering evolved, right? I mean, we have sort of mechanical engineers, computer engineers, chemical engineers who were sort of fairly differentiated. So quite likely, this is the path that we're sort of going to follow with, AI and ML and data science as well.
Thank you.
Sure. Can I add in?
Absolutely, Ankur, please.
Thanks. So from a business standpoint, I would say the level of maturity that is expected of the organizations to really harness the power of AI, with that level of maturity and transformational and business model disruption, those things you really want to have that in multiple verticals, which are still kind of, I would say, quote unquote, lagging behind. This could be across agriculture and other areas, food processing industries, and so forth. In addition, on the core capabilities of AI, one interesting piece that you want to have is verifiability of the models. So for example, if you have a classification model that classifies between a dog and a cat, then can your model be verified that with small perturbation in the image of the dog, it will always classify as dog and not a cat? And in a similar way, can you verify fairness, right? So there are a lot of properties of these models. Can you verify correctness? And these are some of the AI models are slated to be used in flight operations and other mission critical applications. So can you verify that they always give the correct decision? So that verifiability part is still, I would say, in the infancy. It's still being studied. Another part which really is needed on the technical side is data efficiency. As humans, we are highly data efficient because we have a lot of, I would say, ingrained logic evaluation functions that couple with the data evaluation or optimization parts, as compared to a deep learning model where we are highly data efficient. And even though you see evaluation, in fact, improving techniques on meta learning and other kind of models, they are still, I would say, still very far behind. On the application side, I would say there are a lot of intersection with new areas which are emerging. Anshuman definitely mentioned a huge number of areas. Adding to that, in terms of biology, especially if you look at the pandemic and other kind of handling, going into computational immunology, looking at neuroscience, and also looking at the quantum computing part, which now we are seeing a lot of hardware, which is kind of addressing to 40 or 50 qubits in terms of quantum volume. And quantum machine learning is a very interesting emerging space where you see the underlying computations either on the classical data or the quantum data, and then applying the quantum gates or circuit logic over there to be able to give much finer points of optimization, so much better quality of models, accelerating the training of models, and basically developing also new types of hardware in addition to GPUs and FPGAs. To make sure that you can train large, interesting types of models. So a lot of interesting things are coming along. So I would say the journey is, in fact, accelerating, and a lot more to see over there.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of more points to this. First of all, I don't think AI is going to go away. Let's talk 20 years, 40 years, it's going to be AI plus plus or whatever you want to talk about, right? Because every new technology or everything new which coming is AI is pervasive, as we talked about, right? Every technology is touching up with AI. The other important aspect probably will be a digital twin, where, anything which is happening on outside on the ground, right, is actually available, exactly mimicking what is happening on the ground is showing on the screen to tell me what's going to happen next. It can actually predict the failures, right? One of the automotive manufacturer is actually talking about that once the car enters into a service, for servicing, one, they should know what the problem is, because there are sensors attached to the car. It tells them what is going to, first of all, what is going to go wrong for that car, so they can actually tell the car owner that there is something going wrong, right? That's one. Secondly, once it enters, they know what parts are required, what exactly is going wrong with that car. In next 5 to 10 minutes, the car should be out of the shop, so that's where it is heading, and we have seen a lot of things have already improved upon on that direction. Other, I think, is, see, we are talking about industry areas, but how can AI really help me solve a lot of other problems which we have in the world, be it related to hunger? Can I have AI introduced into, and let's not worry about, of course, I mean, we of course worry about the cost factor of it, and a lot of larger enterprises have to come into play here, where can I use AI to produce a lot of food and whatnot, right? Where I can actually reduce or eliminate hunger in the world, basically, right? Can I do that? Can I have today, let's say your Apple Watch and Fitbit gives you any heart anomalies, right? You can do ECG, EKG, but it is costly. Not everybody on the ground can really buy that, right? Can I get those things on a hand of every human being? Because this is something important for life. So why can't have it at a very reasonable rate pricing, basically, where I can anybody who should be able to know about some of these specs. So I think these are, can it predict the cancer before it happens? I know there have been a lot of research. IBM has talked about it quite a bit, and they so can we use AI in some of those areas where it can help as a human, as a world, to achieve a lot of good things for all of us together, right? And obviously for peace and prosperity of every one of us, basically. But yeah, these are a couple of areas where I feel that AI should play a very important role for all of us.
Thanks a lot, Hemang. I think all of you brought in from technology areas to business model maturity to solving not only industry, but actually societal problems. Fascinating facets of this entire spectrum called AI. Thanks a lot for that. We are kind of getting close to 8 p.m., but seeing that all the audience is almost right there with us, and a few very important questions are left. I'd like to take the liberty of extending this by 10 odd minutes or so. Moving quickly on to the next question, and Hemang, I would like you to lead again with that. What are the skill gaps that you are seeing today in industry in this field, and what kind of skills should higher education institutes impart to get graduates and students out who are ready to contribute, ready to hit the ground running?
So first of all, the skill gap for AI has always been there, and it is increasing day by day. And as Anshuman mentioned, right, we are just going to explode AI in every life cycle across the industry, right? So it means that the skill gap is further going to increase. I was just reading a few days back, over 50% or maybe higher than that organization and saying that they have a huge skill gap in AI, right? So it means that we need a lot of people in the space of AI. The larger problem for a lot of them is not about the budgets or other things, but the right skill available at the right time, right? And I think one of the very important point Anshuman touched upon is the way we had engineers for different aspects. I think AI is going to need that as well. It's not just about data scientists, right? While you're solving that problem, and I talked about the ecosystem of AI, right? So you need people to start the journey and apply governance, change management, ML ops, so to say, right? Which was known as DevOps, to move the code into productions and whatnot, right? And then performance management of AI. So I think there are skills required, and these are very specific skills, first of all, for the journey of AI. Then the other point is, very point solutions which we are building using NLP, computer vision, voice analytics. Again, these are very specific fields, like in the field of doctors, right? There are surgeons for a very specific for heart, and you have a bone specific doctors and whatnot, right? There are surgeons for every aspects of thing. AI is, I'm not saying that it's that level, but it still needs a specific skill set to handle those kind of things. Not everybody will be able to solve. Somebody who's working on day in and out on computer vision and can do it, but that's a specialized skill. Again, somebody who's doing NLP, that's a specialized skill. So I think those are the areas where there is going to be a specialization further which will be required. One of the very important aspect which I think institutes should look at is about practical experience, right? So when the person comes out of and I think you touched upon, Geo Institute to have a very good curriculum where you are actually touching upon the live problems to solve them, right? It's not just about, doing a course and coming out of it, right? One is the holistic understanding of AI and data science and what are the nuances around it. Second is solving some of those with a practical experience. Also, let's not pick up, I go to a lot of colleges and whatnot, right? And a lot of projects are taking APIs from Google's or Microsoft and doing image analytics on top of it. You are just using the API. You're not really doing anything on the ground, right? So rather the student should, one, touch upon the live projects, which are touching the social cause if possible, actually going to the core of the technology. That will gain them a lot of experience before even they come out of the college. So I think these are the areas. So one, complete holistic, education on AI and data science. Second, very point solutions where which we will need engineers on those areas. Third, practical experience if you can gain something during your education itself. So I think these are 3-4 areas which I think institute should look upon. But the skill gap is going to increase from here on. It's not going to reduce for sure. Yep.
Yeah, if I may add on top of that, Uttanka, I mean, I think just focusing sort of a little bit more on maybe the soft skills / non-technical skills side of it, right? So I think definitely, I mean, this area of data science or AI, and I think I would maybe differentiate data science versus AI / ML engineering, right? So and focusing more on maybe the data science part of it, right, which is much more exploratory, which is much more trying to identify problems that may not have been solved before, right? So I think the whole piece around sort of critical thinking, right, and sort of really being passionate about sort of the domain or the area that you are in, I think is really key, right? I mean, I think because all the problems are going to be new, right? And you really need a lot of perseverance to really make a dent in some of these hard problems, right? So I think that's sort of one aspect of it. And I think the ability to sort of tie what you do to business impact, or more, and maybe a step before that, right, actionability, right, I think is very key, right? I mean, I think sometimes a lot of the data scientists that I come across, I mean, they believe that just building the model, right, an accurate model, etc., is the end goal, right? But how do you take those outputs from a model to actually make decisions on the ground, and then see how they actually play out in the wild, and then sort of close the loop, right, both from a tech standpoint as well as just from a understanding of the sort of so-called business physics, right, I think is very key, right? And I think sometimes when we frame it more, this area as closer to, say, software engineering, I think we miss out that whole innovation / R&D / exploratory part of it, right? So I think just a call out on some other skills that are sort of layered along with a lot of these technical skills.
So some of the adding on to the set of various skill gaps, one thing I figured out is that with a lot of models available in open source, when you actually try to debug a model and people try to tune it, they're mostly mechanically applying some of the features available in training or auto ML training and things like that, without really understanding the core of the mathematical concept behind it, which can really help to, in a very simplistic way in most of the cases, or think in slightly more innovative way, solve the problem with a much more effectiveness part of it. So that math part is typically missing, because people with a software background normally do not end up using that much in their software journey, or have not used it so far. So I would say that should be one important part of it. And then fully aligned with the panel on the soft skills part, that is really needed, because you really have to have that perseverance part built in. And this whole application, once the model is ready in the context of interaction or an impact for the business, for the product, for the marketing, for the engineering, it's a whole kind of data science, and as an application cuts across all of them, and how to unify that together to give the impact to the company is something that kind of gives a leadership kind of a learning opportunity over there, and to really be able to drive it through and get that impact through, instead of just having a prototype out there.
Thanks a lot, all of you, for those answers. There have been also questions coming in on the chat box. So I'm going to, although we will run short of time if we were to kind of attempt all of them, and we have been typing in simultaneously some answers as well. I will try to club a few questions and put this to all of you, including Dr. Shailesh. A question on the Indian relevance. So I'm going to club this in terms of the question where someone is asking, what is the stage of AI in India currently compared to the world? And are we in the process of solving some real Indian problems using AI?
Yes. No, that's a very good question, because I think so far, AI has solved a lot of Western use cases, and there are a lot of very interesting Indian use cases that need to be solved. I'll just give you one example. If you think about how much work we have done in NLP and speech in languages like English, but how much more has to be done in Indian languages, right? So there's a lot of work to be done. The principles, the technologies, tools are available, but how do we adapt them to the Indian context, right? How do we do, for example, facial recognition technologies, which are built on one set of people, how do we transform that to another set of people, right? It will not work as is in the Indian context. We'll have to rebuild those models, right? Another large number of use cases are emerging now in social sector, like the panelists talked about. So how do we make sure that our farmers get the right advisory at the right time is an open problem. Now, that may not be the problem in the Western world, but it is a real problem in the Indian context. And somehow we need to solve these kind of problems, right? Access to good health care, right? So we have built something like a diagnosis engine, which should work in multiple Indian languages. So everybody should go beyond Google search and should be able to have a chatbot communication with a diagnostic system, for example. So I think the key skill set that everybody talked about, I want to add one, is a keen eye on where the problem statements are. Data science journey starts with a problem statement, not with data. And if you understand that core principle, everybody talked about that they all talked about the problem they were solving, right? And I think there are a lot of very interesting problems in the Indian context. And I keep saying that AI will help India a lot, but I think Indian problem statements will help AI a lot more, because we'll challenge, the autonomous vehicles in India and the speech and all that in India and so many languages. So I think it's a great opportunity to see AI grow and India grow and help each other in a symbiotic way. So yes, we are very, very, hopeful on that front.
We are kind of running very short on time, so I would like to kind of close the Q&A part and invite Professor Larry Birnbaum to provide some concluding remarks on this discussion as a whole and overall on the field of AI and data science as it is today and where it is headed. Dr. Larry.
Yeah, thanks very much, Utanka. And if Shailesh, of course, if you wish to add anything to what I'm going to say, you're most welcome to do so with your acute eye as always. I really enjoyed today's discussion. I thought there were a lot of really good points that got made today about AI and data science. I want to pick up on maybe two major ones and one actually very important one that was only touched on in passing, I would say. I think the first is the difference between the need for specialization and the difference between AI and data science, which is true. These are closely related but not identical fields. And one of the reasons why the program at Geo Institute is structured as an AI and data science program is that different people have different aspirations and different skill sets that they come in with. You can be a great data scientist without being a great developer. It's a lot harder to be a great an AI person or AI developer without being a great developer. So one issue is whether you're coming in with sort of statistical skills and data modeling skills versus coming in with computational skills and development chops. Of course, ideally both, but you can do great things with one or the other. I think touching on this point, I mean, one way to touching on this point is to say that going forward, especially data science, I think is going to be automated faster than people think. And so you really, I think preparing for the future is going to mean a couple of things. One is you have to be an expert in one of three areas. And I think I know Shailesh agrees with me on this. You have to either be very comfortable with the mathematics and statistics of data modeling, very comfortable with the computational aspects of it, or very tuned and knowledgeable about the particular domain in which you're operating. At least one of those three things, and preferably two of them, is really what's required to do great in data science. Finally, just another way to think about the distinction between them is if we think about the automation of data science, in some ways, that's really an AI problem. The kind of people who are going to be involved in automating data science are going to be AI engineers, maybe more than data scientists themselves. Not that they won't be involved, but that's really maybe one of the distinctions. That zeal for the automation that comes from computer science is really part of the orientation and mindset of an AI person. One of the things that came up here also was the question of like sort of using tools versus being a tool builder or innovator. I think everybody in computer science, not just AI, often wrestles with the fact that one of the reasons why computer science has progressed so quickly as it has is because of platformization and abstraction. What that means is that the things that I worked on as a student, or any of the people on this, who are appealing today on this panel, worked on as a student, are kind of in libraries that are in libraries that are in libraries. They are so far down the stack at this point that very few people actually work directly on those things. And that's part of the reason why the field accelerates so quickly. You don't have to keep rebuilding those fundamentals from scratch. You use what's been built previously. And so in some sense, the power of each generation of developers kind of keeps growing exponentially because of all the things that were code that they had to write that are now kind of one line that they invoke some program. And I think the question how much you have to understand about what's going on under the hood remains a very vexing one for people in the field. You have to know something, especially when things go wrong. Okay, to really understand how to apply a tool, you have to really understand how the tool works. But sometimes you can get away with less. And so understanding those distinctions, I think, is really kind of an important thing for the field to wrestle with. The third thing I want to bring up is the sort of the are we done? And of course, I think the answer, as everybody said, is no. I think one of the interesting things about the current state of AI is the remarkable progress we've made, and yet also the distinction between human intelligence and artificial intelligence, which is very easily discernible, for example, by looking at the kinds of mistakes that people make versus the kinds of mistakes that artificial intelligence machines make. So for example, in computer vision, and there are a lot of examples of this, and you should look online, you'll find them. There are lots of pictures of stop signs that have been marginally manipulated in such a way that a computer does no longer sees a stop sign, it sees a thing that says speed limit 45, for example. Whereas a person sees a stop sign. And contra-wise, you see things where the machine says, oh, I think there's a dog on a beach here, and a person looks at it and they see a bunch of static. There's really nothing that looks like anything, let alone a dog on a beach. And so, it's clear that from the kinds of errors that people make and contra-wise, the machines don't make the kinds of errors people do in terms of cognitive set, for example. Just to take an example, being too oriented towards the most recent data and not oriented enough towards the long-term trends of data, which is a mistake that people always make. And we can argue about whether even it's a mistake, but it's a property that people have that machines don't necessarily have unless we wish them to have it. So these kinds of things make it clear that machines and people don't think the same way. And that really raises up the two key challenges, I think, for AI going forward. One is making machines more like people. I mean, how do we really get them to be smart in the way that people are smart? And they're still not there yet, although they can do amazing things. There are some things that people do that they simply find very difficult. I mean, all the work on common sense inference that remains to be done shows it's clearly the case that ordinary human beings can answer questions that machines are continually stumped by even today. And then second of all, it opens up the opportunity of, which was also mentioned in the discussion, of human AI collaboration, which is absolutely a critical part of the future, because if machines don't think the way we do, then that really opens up the idea of joint systems of people and artificially intelligent machines that can actually do things that neither kind of system could do by itself. That together we can do things that we couldn't have done without the machine, and vice versa, which is a fantastic opportunity for AI as well. But it, I think, also opens up some great instrumental challenges, namely, how do we build machines that we can collaborate with? How does the need for collaboration change the fundamental design of the underlying technologies? And finally, how do we build systems that allow us to communicate and collaborate with these machines effectively and fluently, as we all do, which of course is primarily through things like natural language, but not only. So these are some great challenges that lie ahead over the next 10, 20, or 100 years. I think that's what's really exciting. At the same time, of course, all of the wonderful problems that we can apply to as it stands right now to make genuine improvements in the world. So it is an exciting time to be in the field. And thank you all again for some great discussions, which I really appreciated. I thought there were some really great points got made, and I missed some, but those were the things that stuck out in my mind anyway. So thanks very much. Shailesh, if you have any other remarks.
Oh, I think that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Larry, and thanks everyone. I'm just going to conclude with these things. I was just grabbing a cup of coffee before I headed into the discussion, and Mr. Santosh, who prepares the nice coffee for us, he was asking me that his son is going from 10th to PUC, as we call it, and he has a gap of 2 months to do something, and he was saying, "Ye AI mein kuch milega kya?" Larry says, "Is there something in AI?" And that's Santosh, who you met some days back. That's the level to which the word, the lexicon has pervaded our system. And as thought leaders, educators, industry leaders, I think we owe it to the next generation to point them in the right direction and ignite that spark. So to that extent, I think it's been, I hope, a very informative session for all our attendees. And thanks a lot for participating with your questions and being present throughout, even though we extended the time. And all of you have a great evening ahead. Thanks a lot to all our panelists and experts once again. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you so much. Bye.
And say hello for me and tell him I miss his smile and his coffee.
Absolutely, I'll do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.